Hello, peoples. So, what I was thinking about doing was making a batch node. Something that can take multiple export nodes, like in this case, if I do a change upstream, I need to export this node before I need to export this node. And then in the current case that I'm working with, I have another network that's reliant on that second export node of the first network to then have two more export nodes along the way. Now, this I know the way of working can be a little cumbersome that way, but it's easier to work with things cached to disk. So that's the reason that I work like this. So what we're going to be doing is making a new OTL and using the HDA module built in to run some Python script to do all this work for us. So if it's at the end of the day, or you're going to go to sleep soon, or what have you, at least then you can just set up a whole bunch of nodes to export, and then even include an out node for rendering if you need to in the long run. So, which is the case that I'm currently working with. Because I want to get this sucker rendered, and I don't want to have to sit around and need to babysit what is getting batched out prior to needing to batch it. Or what needs to get batched out prior to, you know what I mean, just sitting around just waiting for exports. It's slow, it's annoying, you know, it could be 2 hours worth of exports and you can't go to sleep, or what, you export one and by the time you get back, it's kind of annoying. So what we'll be doing is setting up one button for the batch itself, another button to add whatever node that you have selected into the list. And I need to make sure that multi-list is set up here. So if I hit apply, any node that's in here, hit a button, it'll throw it into here, and then when you hit batch, it'll read what's in here to actually batch export. So let's just say batch exe, I'll just say batch, batch execute. I'll do the object node. I'll then do add to list, add list, and then I will do batch list, batch list. Okay, so now what we have here is everything's named correctly and getting to go. So I'm going to set up a Python callback script to say this node I want to run an HDA module on, HDA module, so that it will pick up a Python command called add node that we'll set up with the quargs, which is basically all the arguments that is maintained in the node name, the attribute that was just ran, the button, everything else. And so with that, it'll be able to run some Python script that we will just set up right now. So I will do a new Python module under the scripts tab, and I'm going to say define add node quargs, and just to make sure that this is actually going, let's do quargs and node. Now, what you should, if you haven't used this before, there are a ton of great options in the actual quargs to learn about. So as you can see, it says subnet 1, and that is the subnet 1 after clicking the button. But what you could do, if you aren't familiar, and you're familiar with Python a little bit maybe, if you type in keys, it basically acts as a dictionary definition. Oh, key. Type in keys. It acts as a dictionary, so it can maintain all of your information under here. So you got node, you have the script, you have the parameters, the parameter name, script name, all that jazz. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be using the node name to find the parameter of parm of obj node, and we're going to do eval this, and that way it will print out whatever node that we have selected. And so we'll just select one of our export nodes. This one's a little quicker to export itself, and make sure that export relative paths is turned off while we're deving this, because then that way it'll be a little easier to actually find the node itself. Now if we hit print, you can see, or if we hit add to list, you can see it prints it out for us. So we're going to use this to then add this node, clear node, and we'll find the current batch list, which is going to then be the similar setup, and we'll do batch list. and eval. Now the reason I'm pulling that up is just so we can add it to the list. We can add the name of the current node to this list, so we don't need to worry about anything going awry, that nodes won't overwrite themselves. I want us to do cur node, but since we want them to be on different lines by default, we'll put in a new line. This is a new line expression type of mentality in scripting in general and most languages. So if we hit add, well, I should actually be then setting it back. If we do our batch list, set, and cur list, add, accept. Oh, didn't want to accept it. Well, I mean, I wanted to accept it, but I'll leave the window open. So now we got it added. And so every single time that you hit the button, it will add it again and again and again. So with this in mind, I know there's a blank line on top, which we can get around by doing, let's say, if cur list equals nothing, then do one thing, and if it's equal to another, we can do another. But not like this is much of a issue. We can get around it when we do the actual batch command, but just to make things look pretty. So if I do that and then hit print, add. So now we have starting on the top line. So since I know by default a lot of the button presses are called execute, we can change this in the future, but I'm just going to use this for now. Execute. So I'm then going to, let's say, add a what type of breaker should we have in here? I'll put a dash for the time being. And so why I'm doing that is so we can break apart the actual line in Python and get what this is. Now, you can have dashes in names. I have an idea. We'll do something a little weirder. So now we'll do, and gotta change it in both. Might be good to have our breaker set up to be a different thing, but for the time being, I'll just use the up caret. So I'm just going to set that. So this is the beginning of our little command. And so I'm then going to go to our batch, do the same thing, and just to make it easy, I'll just copy and paste. On our batch execute. So let's just say batch run. So now our batch run will be finding what's in the list and executing every line individually. We'll do def batch run quargs, and we'll say we'll do batch list equals I can type quargs node, then farm batch list, and we'll do an eval. So this will pull up the batch list for us, and just to make sure it's actually going to work, print batch list. And I just like to do the returns just because, you know, if for whatever reason I move this into a different scripting area or whatnot in the future, it'll at least work. You need to make sure you set your hscript to Python on your callback script. Hit apply. Batch exe none, batch run key none. Oh, wow. Sorry guys. Guess I'm a little tired. Okay, batch, and now we have our command to execute. So here is where it gets a little tricky. So every single line, let's say we'll do another 2, and you know what, for the time being, I will pull up that other node to export from the second input, from that second group geometry node that I was working with. I'll hit accept, and now I have 2. So this way, you can actually see that it's going to print out the 2 here. Let's clear this just to make it easy to read. So what I'm going to do is batch list. Let's say instead of batch list, split list equals batch list dot split, and we're going to break it at that new line. Now, what this is going to do is break apart the batch list into every individual line. So if you see how it returns right there, we'll get two different entries. One entry is that, and the other entry is the first one. So if we just hit print, now you can see it's set up as a list. And so what we're going to be doing is iterating over every single batch in that list. So we'll do 4x in split list. Now this will iterate over every single one, and I'm going to split it again and say command cmd equals x dot split again by our limiter, by our caret limiter, and then we'll just print out cmd. And what this will have is it will break apart execute and execute. So you can see that it will break it apart like that. Well, I should take off that. So now you can see that we have two sets, first one, second one, with execute, execute. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to set it up as though it's going to run that process. So what I'm going to do is who.node and cmd, the first entry of cmd, and it's going to do parm cmd second entry, and then press button. Now this is basically, it's acting like it's actually pressing that button for you. So if I hit OK and apply, and just hit batch exe, now it's running through. So as you can tell, it's calculating. The frames are a little long. Maybe I could have picked a smaller export, but they are the cheapest ones in the network that I'm currently working with. So the next step that we could take after this test exports is setting it up so that we can have a custom button entry. So it just finished. It didn't give me any warning that it finished. So let's just say who.u, I want a message to actually get thrown when this is finishing. So we'll say display message of batch complete. And then we'll say severity and who.severity type. Gotta get this a little bit larger so you can see a little better. Who severity type. Severity type dot warning message. Yeah, message. So now I'll just hit apply and hit batch export. Batch complete. Huzzah! So okay, now we want to start to add what parameters are getting ran on this. So we'll do a string. Yeah, we'll do a string, whatever. And we'll do parm list. So this will run through any parms that we'll see here. All right, so my Houdini had like a little bit of connection there, and I don't really know what's going on. But let's just get going with our parm list, and we want to set this up to be a list of all the parameters on the object itself. So I'm going to do obj equals who node and the current node that we're on, so that we can pull up the parameter of the object node. So that way we can evaluate the definition of it, the entry in there, so we can actually pull up what it's reading out as. So we then want to make a parm list of all of the parameters on that object. So since it prints it out as a object path for us, we need to actually set that as an object. We'll do parms, and that will return a list of all the parameters in on that node. So if I do print parm list, and then I'm going to return 0, so it has something that it returns. And the reason I'm doing 2 is that every entry has 2 entries. One is the value, and the other one is the label. So we need to put in 2 entries for every single entry, or 2 values for every single entry. So make sure that you are working in Python, just to make things a little easier for you. And you notice it prints out every single parameter on the node that we have selected. and there's only one entry of 0, not 2, as you can tell. So okay, well, what we want to do now is print out all the names of this, or not print them out, but get all the names for them in parm list, and we'll do print x.name. And this way you can see that it's printing out all the names of all the parameters that are on the object that you have currently selected. So what we want to do is build out our return array so that we can actually have our list work properly. Okay, ret list, and I'm going to append the current name of the parameter that we're working with. And again, you need to do it twice so that you can have a proper list. Ret list, and apply. Now execute. So there you go. You have all the parameters currently listed here. Okay, now what we want to do is set up our pull down to actually get read and put into our batch list here. So what we want to do is get the same entry from above and go like that. And we want to set this up as parm list and hit apply. So now it should be reading whatever this entry is, and there you go. It just puts it in there for you. So whatever you pick, it will set it for you. Now I have seen situations where if you try to read one, it'll print out empty like this. In that case, it doesn't realize that you have anything selected because it's getting generated out by Python. So just make sure you just click on it and then hit add to list again. So there we go. We currently have it set up. Let me just say this is the beginnings of a batch list. You can add all kinds of other additional things to this. Like in this case, I'm gonna now do a render preview, add to list. Oh, make sure it's all in one line, all in these lines. Hit close. I'm gonna hit save. Save this node as well. So now we have a batch lister or batcher. Okay, now we're ready to try this out. I'm just gonna go over to our out node just to make sure. All right, how about we do current frame only, and go back to our object. And I'm going to make sure I don't want to calculate out that 0.5 because that was the thing that was causing all the trouble in the first place. It's so much time and waste that I needed to spend. But just to be quick, just print this out, hit save, and batch exe. Batch complete. Which maybe just because it's connected to mplayer, it disconnects for that moment, thinking that the Python script is done, because it does actually send out the render. But now it's opening up mplay, I think. Should be. There we go. And now it's rendering. Ain't that just pretty? So in this video you learned how to set up a batch node using the Who module, the HDA module on the node itself, to run through some Python scripts. You learned how to get all the parameters off of an object and run through them to make a list of all the parameters so you can select through them and add to the batch list. I hope you liked the video. I'm going to set up a couple more videos in the near future of stuff very similar to this, but I hope it was enlightening to some degree. If you have any suggestions for me, if I'm doing something a slow way or a wrong way, please let me know down in the comments. I love to learn new methods of how people are doing things, and this program is so vast and large, and Python scripting language is rather vast and large as well. So there's any number of ways to do things. So I hope you enjoyed the video.